passion for many of our members, but this is a group that we've begun pulling together to create some order and to bring events like this to you as a congregation and to bring to our community as a whole. A couple things about this group. Again, we are very new, and knowing that as we look at history from the prophets to Jesus, to leaders of the faith today, they set forth an example of how we lead a ministry of social justice, especially as folks of privilege, whatever that privilege is coming from. And knowing that the first step is to listen and to learn. And so we've been doing that for a season for a couple years now, and then this is definitely a continuation of that. A really enjoyable way for us to learn from the beauty of the spirituals, and then also to reflect on our participation in this really powerful music that unfortunately has not necessarily always received the financial benefits. The communities that are really own this music are not necessarily receiving the financial benefits of that. And so as good Boulderites, we were listening to NPR, and we thought, we heard a radio program where churches were beginning to find ways to compensate folks who were keeping the spirituals alive, knowing that we don't have a source of funding that goes to royalties for the people who wrote these songs and own them. And so this is a step in that journey for us. We all are going to have a chance to contribute financially to the choir tonight and to the movement. And I have no problem inviting people to give to where I see God moving in the world. Joining financially is one small way that we can be a part of this really amazing thing that God is doing today and has been doing for at least 400 years. And so I have the privilege of welcoming the Spirituals Project Choir and Roger Holland. And I'm going to hand it over to them. They're going to take it from here, and I'll be back to share a few other announcements at the end. I do remember one thing I wanted to share. In the evening, the light comes through these windows a little funny, and so if the light's in your eyes, feel free to move around. We do have some room in the balcony, but don't feel bad if you got to move because you're getting light in your eyes. And then after the event, we are going to have a reception to get to meet some of our new friends and to connect with each other. And so again, it's my honor to welcome the Spiritual Project Choir and Roger Holland.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for coming out and for sharing with us. We're excited to be here. This is our first concert of the season, and it's the first time we've performed outside of the campus of the University of Denver. And so it's really exciting to see people up in close. We are the Spirituals Project Choir, and we specialize in singing this music created by enslaved Africans in America in the 18th and 19th century that we now know as Negro spirituals. And I like to call them Negro spirituals because I'm actually teaching a course in this, and I tell my students I like to still use that nomenclature because it forces us to reckon with its socio-historic context. In other words, this music was created during a time of slavery in this country through suffering and all kinds of other things, but I'm not going to give you a lecture on that. We'll talk more about it. But that's what our mainstay is, that we sing Negro spirituals, but the first song that we just sang for you is not a Negro spiritual. So you said, why are you singing that? Well, I'm glad you asked. Well, the reason I really believe that it's important to emphasize the origins of this music. The other thing that I teach my students is that this music, I believe, it is my postulation that this music would not have existed without the convergence of three important factors: African idioms and African culture, the context of slavery, and enslaved communities' exposure to Christianity, both through the Bible, biblical stories, and through Protestant Christian hymnody. So the rest of everything on the program, with the exception of a selection from the movie soundtrack Harriet, is all spirituals. Oh, I take that back. The last song is not, but we'll talk about that later. I'd like to bring to your attention the back page of your program, and on that you'll see a notice that describes a remarkable bequest gift to the Lamont School of Music at the University of Denver. Michael McGoldrick, a devoted longtime donor and past president of the Lamont Society, passed away last December. As part of his legacy, his estate will match cash donations to Lamont on a one-to-one basis up to a total of $4 million. So yeah, me too, right? So anything you give is appreciated. Large or small, any qualifying gift This has been updated from what you have in your program. Any qualifying gift received by March 1st, not December, but March 1st will be matched. It's quite astounding, isn't it? We are deeply thankful for Michael's philanthropy. This is an unparalleled opportunity for Lamont for supporting our students, faculty, and its various programs. We hope you will consider making a donation of any size by mail, phone, online, or with the QR code in the program, as well as the baskets in the back. Yes, yes. You may donate to the Lamont area of choice, like the Spirituals Project, or make an unrestricted contribution. Whatever you decide, your contribution is most welcome, and it will be doubled. So thank you for considering a donation to Lamont and to joining us in meeting this match. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, as we go on with the program, I need to give you, what are those things that they call, we need to make this warning that something deep is about to happen. I forget what that's called. Trigger warning, that's a more sophisticated one, but that is very apropos. So you are about to hear an excerpt, from a slave narrative written by William Wells Brown. In this excerpt, Mr. Wells recalls an incident from when he was a boy wherein his mother was late for the morning's work, which began at about 4:30 a.m.
I was born in Lexington, Kentucky. The man who stole me as soon as I was born, he recorded the births of all infants, which he claimed to be born on his property in a book, which he kept for that purpose. My mother's name was Elizabeth. She had 7 children: Solomon, Leander, Benjamin, Joseph, Milford, Elizabeth, and myself. No 2 of us children were born of the same father. My father's name was, as I learned from my mother, was George Higgins. He was a white man, cousin of my master, and connected with some of the first families in Kentucky. My master, Dr. Benjamin Young, owned about 40 slaves, 25 of whom were field hands. He moved from Kentucky to Missouri in 1816, and Missouri was not even a state yet. I was quite young, about 2 years old, when he settled about 30 or 40 miles above St. Charles on the Missouri River, where in addition to his practice as a physician, he carried on milling, merchandising, and farming. He had a large farm, the principal productions of which were tobacco and hemp. Now, the slave cabins were situated in the back. They were in the back of the farm, which by the house of the overseer. His name was Grove Cook. He had entire charge of the farm, and having no family, he was allowed to keep a woman to keep his house, whose business was just to deal out the provisions to the field hands. A woman also kept the quarters to do the cooking for the field hands, who were summoned to their unrequited toil every morning at 4 o'clock by the ringing of the bell, which hung on a post near the overseer's house. They were allowed about a half an hour to eat breakfast and then to get to the field. At about a half hour past 4, the horn was blown by the overseer, which was the signal to commence work. Everyone who was not on that spot at that time received 10 lashes from the Negro whip, which was kept always armed by the overseer. The handle was about 3 feet long with a butt end filled with lead. The lash was about 6 or 7 feet in length. And it was made of cowhide, braided wire on the end of it. The whip was put to use frequently and freely, and the smallest offense in part of the slave, furnished an occasion for its use. During that time, Mr. Cook was the overseer and I was the house servant, a situation that was preferable to that of the field hand, as I was better fed, better clothed, and not obligated to rise at the ringing of the bell. And I was allowed about a half hour after it rang. I often laid and heard the crack of the whip and the screams of the slaves. My mother was a field hand. And one morning, she was about 10 or 15 minutes late, behind the others getting to the field. And as soon as she reached that spot where they were to work, the overseer commenced to whipping her. She cried, "Oh, pray, oh, pray, oh, pray." Generally, that was the words of the people, imploring mercy from the hands of their oppressors. I heard her voice. I knew it, jumped out of my bunk and went to the door. The field was some distance from the house, but I could hear every crack, every whip, and every groan from my poor mother. I remained at the door, not daring to go any further. Cold chills ran over me, and I wept aloud. After giving her 10 lashes, the sound of the whip ceased. I returned to my bed, found no consolation in my tears. It was not even daylight.
our season focused on the communal nature of this music. In the winter, we highlighted stories from our immediate community, members of the Spirituals Project, but also members of the Denver metro area. And in the spring, we focused on slave narratives, and you just heard one of them. Very moving. Eileen Gunther wrote a book called In Their Own Words, and she makes the case that the music can be better understood through the lens of the enslaved community themselves. We also focused on community engagement with this music. The music was created in community, by community, for the enslaved community. And as Zora Neale Hurston would say, the music itself is not authentic unless the community is singing the music. And so we focused a lot on community-engaged singing of this music. Now, you may think, well, I don't know those songs, but they were created to be easily assimilated, easily garnered by those in the community. So they're not complicated. They're very repetitive with simple melodies. And so for the next few songs, we invite you to sing along with us. This next song we're going to sing and share with you and ask you to join in is called Come Out the Wilderness. Now, as I mentioned before, one of the important aspects in the creation of this music was the enslaved community's exposure to Christianity. Even though they were forbidden to learn to read and write, some did, but they heard the stories, and if they didn't get the full gospel, then in the presence of their oppressors, then they got a more complete and liberative message in secret in places called brush harbors, where they met as the invisible church. And there are many, many themes to this music that was first known as sorrow songs, but there's a lot of joy in many of these songs as well. One of the themes in the Negro spirituals is the theme of wilderness. And the idea of wilderness comes from that sense. I know we're in a church and not everybody is a church person, but if you go to the Old Testament and you look at the story of Abraham and Sarah, Abraham had another wife before Sarah gave birth to Isaac. And that's in my mind because I actually just preached about this morning. But anyway, one of the wives was Haggai. And she felt like she wasn't wanted. And so she left and went out into the wilderness. And God spoke to her, said, Haggai, nah, you're going to be blessed too. Don't worry about what's going on right now, but rest in the knowledge that you also are going to give birth to a wonderful son and be a blessing to many people. And then she came out of that wilderness experience a different person with a different kind of purpose. And one of the ideas of this theme of the wilderness is when one goes out into the wilderness, that's a place of being lost. It's a place in a very Christological sense of being in sin. And when one finds God and comes out of the wilderness, you are reborn, you are found, you are remade, you are now part of the community. And it's a cause for great rejoicing. And so we're going to sing this song. I'm going to take a little extra time and teach it to you right quick, and then you're going to sing it with us. Is that okay? Come on, the right answer is? So this song is in the style, especially on the verses, of one of the many African retentions, that is to say, a African culture and idioms that the enslaved community brought with them and that they retained even though they were on these shores. A lot of early scholars would have us to believe that the Africans that were brought to these shores were devoid of culture, intelligence, and any kind of religion. That is not so. It's not like over the course of those couple of months when they traversed the Atlantic Ocean, they just forgot everything and they lost all of who they were. That is not so. And more recent scholarship would affirm this. So call and response is a very African engagement activity. So when we get to the verse, there will be a song leader and they will give the call. And then the people will give the response. So I want you to sing this. Right now you're just going to repeat after me. Come out the wilderness. Come out the wilderness. Come out the wilderness. Come out the wilderness. Stay up there. Come out the wilderness. Come out the wilderness. The last line. Leaning on the Lord. Go. Leaning on the Lord. All right. I feel that's enough. You got enough to go. When you wait to the chorus, just think, I'm leaning on the Lord. Let's stand and sing this together. Tell me, how did you feel when you come out the wilderness? Come out the wilderness. Come out the wilderness. Tell me, how did you feel when you come out the wilderness? Leaning on the Lord. I am leaning on the Lord. I am leaning on the Lord. I am leaning on the Lord who died on Calvary. Did you get baptized when you come out the wilderness? Come out the wilderness. Come out the wilderness. Did you get baptized when you come out the wilderness? Leaning on the Lord. I am leaning on the Lord. I am leaning on the Lord. I am leaning on the Lord who died on Calvary. Did your soul feel happy when you come out the wilderness? Come out the wilderness. Come out the wilderness. Did your soul feel happy when you come out the wilderness? 'Cause I'm leaning on the Lord. I am leaning on the Lord. I am leaning on the Lord. I am leaning on the Lord who died on Calvary. I am leaning on the Lord. I am leaning on the Lord. I am leaning on the Lord who died on Calvary. Right. So this next song we want to share with you, very familiar tune, hopefully more of you know it than not, is called Wade in the Water. Now this particular spiritual has also been associated with one of the greatest conductors of the Underground Railroad, none other than so you know the history. Good. Yes. And it is rumored that she would sing this to kind of instruct and let people know that were escaping, that if you went through water as you were making your way up north, it would make it more difficult for those dogs that were chasing you to catch onto your scent. So therefore, one needed to wade through the water. Yes, yes. But there's also a biblical precedent for this. Like I said, that the enslaved community was inspired and influenced by the biblical stories. So the New Testament has it that there was a pool in Bethesda. And once a year, the Holy Spirit would come and trouble the water. And if you went into the water after the Holy Spirit troubled the water, you would be healed. So you really want to wade in the water. For those who don't know it, it goes like this. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children. Wade in the water. God's on the troubled water. The spirituals that endured these many centuries have done so because the people found use for them. In other words, they sang them because they meant something and they served the community in some way. And those songs that didn't serve the community just kind of faded. This next one we want to share with you may have been inspired by Psalm 23. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. We shall walk through the valley in peace. If Jesus himself will be our leader, we shall walk through the valley in peace. We shall walk through the valley in peace. We shall walk through the valley in peace. Jones taught me that the old ship of Zion is another song associated with Harriet Tubman. A lot of the spirituals have messages and themes and images of transportation. Can you guess why? So we see things about chariots and trains. The gospel trains that come from the Lord. And sometimes even ships. There's a couple of reasons why. Because these conveyances not only took one to heaven, but also to a place called freedom. And if you didn't arrive at freedom somebody might just start singing, hold on, just a little while longer. Hold on, just a little while longer. Hold on, just a little while longer. Everything will be alright. Everything will be alright. Hold on, just a little while longer. Hold on, just a little while longer. Hold on, just a little while longer. Oh, everything will be alright. Oh, everything will be alright. So fight on, just a little while longer. Oh, fight on, just a little while longer. Oh, fight on, just a little while longer. Oh, everything will be alright. Oh, everything will be alright. Pray on, just a little while longer. Oh, pray on, just a little while longer. Oh, pray on, just a little while longer. Oh, everything will be alright. Oh, everything will be alright. Then sing on, just a little while longer. Oh, sing on, just a little while longer. Oh, sing on, just a little while longer. Oh, everything will be alright. 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 So, we invoked the name. You know what? In African culture, and it's not the only one, but in African culture, there's a strong reverence for elders and ancestors. And in African cosmology, it is believed that one's ancestors never truly die. They never fully leave you if you keep their memory alive, if you invoke their name. That practice still lives on today. When we think about the number of black people that have been killed in this country, particularly in the last 5 to 10 years, through all manner of violence, especially police brutality. And there are a group of people that continue to say the names Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd. So we have invoked the name of our ancestor a lot today. That is Harriet Tubman. That's someone who believed in the freedom of her people and risked her life time and time and time again. So we want to share with you a song that was featured in the movie soundtrack, Harriet. And the song says, stand up.
I've been walking with my face turned to the sun. Weight on my shoulders, a bullet in my gun. See, I got eyes in the back of my head, just in case I have to run. I do what I can when I can, while I can for my people. While the clouds roll back and the stars fill the night, that's when I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home, far across the river. Do you hear freedom calling, calling me to answer? Gonna keep on keeping on. I can feel it in my bones. And I'll fight with the strength that I got until I die. So I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home, across the river. Do you hear freedom calling, calling me to answer? Gonna keep on keeping on.
did not appear, was not composed, was not created, did not emerge until late in the antebellum period, most likely right at about the end of the Civil War, where the community proclaimed, "Before I be a slave, I be buried in my grave, and go home to my Lord and be free." When we closed our May concert, we sang a song that was very popular during the Civil Rights Movement. And I've had a big aversion to singing this song, partly because of the things that I know about its use and the evolution and its effectualness. That is to say, the song "We Shall Overcome" was a staple of the civil rights movement, but many of the young people towards the end of what I call the formal civil rights movement, and in many ways it just kind of petered out. It died when Martin Luther King died. A lot of the young people were frustrated because they felt like all this talk about civil rights and freedom and justice, and we don't see a lot of stuff happening. And so they said, forget this, "We shall overcome." We need to sing "We shall overrun." Enough of this passive resistance. We need to make some things happen. And, you know, I'm not as young as those folks. I've been around a few more years. But the fact remains, especially in the last 5 to 10 years, and not just the violence perpetrated against the African American community, the gun violence in our country has grown to unbelievable proportions. And I, in particular, am so tired of people sending forth thoughts and prayers. I'm like, no more thoughts and prayers. How about some action? How about doing something? In the Black community, we would say, stop talking about it and just be about it. But this choir that you see before you gives me hope. Because this is a multiracial, multi-generational choir. And their existence lets us know that justice and equity and community among all peoples is possible. Just seeing them together. And so I thought maybe we can sing "We Shall Overcome" and it start to mean something again, if people will do something and not just sing and think happy thoughts. But we need people to do things, just things. In the academy, we would call it praxis, where we put our theory and our beliefs into action. And to that end, folks, I agree. I think we have to be concerned about what's going on in our country politically right now. And I hope each and every one of you go out and vote, if you haven't already. In the civil rights movement, people used to cross one arm over the other and sing, and I'm not going to ask you to do that today for a number of reasons. But I will ask you to stand and join with us in solidarity as we sing "We Shall Overcome." We shall overcome. We shall overcome.
All right, thank you so much to the Spirituals Choir, and we are so grateful that you have joined us here today. As we allow you to regress and get the first chance at snacks, I've got a couple things to share. First of all, I wanted to thank some folks. Hold your applause for a second. I wanted to say thank you to Kaisa, who is our music minister director, and our pastor, Chris Broadway Bauman, who I think she came downstairs, and then Debbie and Chuck Brown, who helped really coordinate the efforts. And then there were, this was really a joint effort by many of our boards and committees here at the church. So thank you everybody who brought snacks and helped with coordination. And so let's give everybody a round of applause who helped contribute. And then I want to call out one other group. Thank you to the NAACP for helping promote this. And before you give them a round of applause, I also wanted to make an announcement. I just found out last night that they are bringing the spiritual choir back to Boulder County in the early spring in February. So if you want to find out when and where that is, you should go to their website and join the NAACP. That's one action we can all take today, and it's really easy, $30, and the concerts and the things that they provide our community are worth way more than that. So that's one way to respond. And then, so let's thank the NAACP. And then I invite you to, again, join us for refreshments on the west side of the building. And please remember to make a contribution. There's lots of different ways to give. We do have baskets in the back if you want to make a physical contribution, and then also the online options. And we really encourage you to check us out with the Racial Justice Ministry and the other ministries of the church. And if you have any questions about that, please let me know. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate you guys being here and enjoying this experience with us.